in case other community members are interested.
There's difficulty connecting.
I'm sorry?
I said there were difficulty connecting.
Oh, yeah, I see you in two places. Okay. Glad you're here. Hi, everyone, again. Thank you so much for coming. The point of this meeting is to learn about what some community members who have been working on it, Pam and Marian, are proposing, and Darcy was with them too. Learn also what the police department is doing. Thanks, Michelle, because they do block captain training to connect neighbors together for crime safety. And we have our Office of Emergency Services manager and staff, and also Rocky with OES background from West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council to develop the ideas. And we have another council member, Claudia Jimenez, as support
Yeah.
for these efforts. Okay, so if you allow us, I would like to ask Pam to present what they're proposing, then get Michelle's outline of what a block captain program is, and we take continue the discussion from there. Welcome, Jackie. Pam, do you have a slides or you just want to talk?
I'm just gonna speak. It's only gonna be about 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
All right. So as you all know, Sohila spearheaded the need for emergency evacuations. And Marion Wheeler, who is a registered nurse and administrator.
Williams.
Oh my God, did I say Wheeler? I'm so sorry. Marion Williams is a registered nurse and administrator and has further stressed emergency evacuation for vulnerable residents. And Darcy Crossman, a community organizer. And I have met over the course of several months to address the need for effective emergency evacuation of vulnerable residents. I have done additional research on this topic. And so what I'm doing today is I'm reporting on what is crucially needed for essential and crucial successful planning. So there's basically three essential components. One is data collection without liability. And basically that's who needs what. And then who will help? The community first and the government last. It's very important for self-responsibility and being ready to have help. And it sounds like this is something the city is already addressing, which is fabulous. And then up-to-date communication and know clearly what to do. This is really important, and this is where some real work needs to be done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is keep this short, but hopefully succinct and valuable. So each section of the three, I'm going to just give a little bit more body to it. And at the end, there is a more extensive inquiry, the questionnaire, which I could just go through that with you if you want. So the first thing is a questionnaire to be sent to residents. It's to be added to an encrypted and totally private database to identify who needs help and what help is needed. And this is going to happen in two ways. One is a mailed questionnaire, and then the other one is an expanded door-to-door interview. This would be done for people that either can't read or didn't get the interview or are known but didn't respond. And the people that would do this outreach would be Meal on Wheels people, churches, or maybe the CERT community. Now, since this is a government group that's meeting, I'm going to go over just briefly what the legal issues are here. And there's obviously more detail, but this is just, I think, going to set the obstacles aside. So to prevent lawsuits based on what's called detrimental reliance, the survey instruments must fundamentally shift from rescue request to planning aid. So here's what that means. Let's say instead of saying register here for evacuation assistance, you would say register to help emergency managers plan for neighborhood needs. instead of saying we will use this info for rescue, you would say this data informs resource allocation. Rescue is not guaranteed. You must have a personal plan. List your medical conditions. This one's really important for HIPAA. You don't require, you don't ask the medical condition specifically, but what you do ask is what the needs are. So you would say, do you require power lift assistance or oxygen or refrigeration of medicine? In other words, you can ask for what the need is, but you don't ask for what the condition of the need is. And then it cannot be a permanent registry. So all this data that's collected needs to be self-expiring every year. And that does two things. It keeps the liability intact, and it also keeps the community engaged because they need to up and make it more current and stay engaged with this system. The other thing that's really important on this, and from a legal standpoint, is to shift the tone from data collection to community care. You must frame this initiation not as a government list, but as a living safety net. To prevent false hope and liability, every survey must have this disclaimer. I'm just going to read it. This survey is for planning purposes only. Completion of this form does not guarantee that emergency responders will be able to assist you during a disaster. You must still have your own personal evacuation plan. Your answers are voluntary and confidential. So the whole liability thing and the concern about that is solved with just those two approaches. And the second, okay, so that was basically the data. I haven't gone through what the questionnaire involves, but I'm dealing with how to be successful with the data collection. So it's done with the questionnaire. It's also done with the door-to-door so everybody's included. And then part two is who will help. And what's needed is a resilient resident program. And I think that term, resilient resident program, might just be the name of the program. That resilient resident kind of explains what it is very clearly. Also, self-responsibility would include a circle of support. Again, that would be a term that I think might be very helpful to use. And this is where each resident has set up sort of like what a company does with a board of directors. There must be a community involvement program. Government is not set up to deliver services at the level of need, but organizing the community can be done. The government needs a database as discussed with legal requirements. So an emergency evacuation can occur for those who cannot leave without assistance, but the government is a backup for those who need ambulance or van pickup or others who don't drive or who can get a car, will get help from neighbors, a circle of support. And some of the things that the neighbors would help with, some of the projects that could be put out as, and Sohila's 94803 list could be very helpful with this. So this could be kind of a community project to have these circles of support and things like getting your go bag together, especially if there's medications involved, having the phone chargers, having battery backup, some essentials for survival, not the big get the extra shoes and the socks and the underwear, but those particular important evacuation needs. So Hila's 94, okay. So this is still part of the resilient resident. So Hila's 94803 list at the moment is an important messaging of important events and can be used to create and support this strong community involvement. It can be included or added to a master list from the government, which would be an email list. Okay, so that brings us to 3. So far we've done the data collection without the liability. Then we've done the resilient residents and the backup. The government is the backup with the ambulances. And then the third one is the most important one. It's up-to-date, accurate, and accessible communication. It isn't a website. It's an email from the city. It's a siren, which just says, we have an emergency that's evacuation. It just alerts people that now they need to look at the other communication systems. If they don't even know there's an emergency, what good does it do to have these other communication systems? They have to know there is an emergency and they have to find what to do. So the first thing is the siren tells them, oh, I got to check something out. Hopefully there's an email. The most important thing is a PG&E type phone call. The PG&E phone tree, when we have an outlet, calls within 15 minutes to half an hour with what the area is, what's happening, what they expect to be done, and then they send updates. That's what needs to be done for the evacuations. It needs to be a phone call that says this, as well as an email. And then this third one is really important. It's a 511 type of call in. So, when you're driving down the road and there's some kind of big block and you don't know what it is, you dial 511 and it'll tell you, you say what area you're asking about. It'll tell you what the traffic is, why it happened, how long it'll take to clear up. You can do this from home when you're looking at your map and you see the red. So a 511 type call in is different than the PG&E type call to you. So these are the 4 types of communication that are essential. Having a website with a map is just not going to cut it in an evacuation. What we need is the email from the city, which would be up to date. It has to be current. Then there would be the siren that would just say, okay, start checking for what's going on. Then there would be the phone tree type of thing that PG&E does and the 511. These are essential for successful evacuation. And then if you'd like, I can go through the questionnaire and just
Pam, could you send them to us?
Sure.
Because that's more helpful.
Sure.
Reading it, but we get the general idea. I mean, data collection, neighbor to neighbor, which I hope Michelle can help with that. And then
communication that's accurate and accessible and up to date. And it isn't a map on a website. It's a call and it's a call in. And it's
that's long range audio device that we've been advocating for. And actually, it's good that you remind us. So, Richard, I hope you get an idea, and Michelle, of the level of expectation from the community. Go ahead, Claudia.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Pam, for this presentation and explanation. I just wanted to hear from Richard and Michelle what we have and how, based on what Pam said or presented, how do you see getting to that level of communication, data collection, and what are we I just wanted to know to understand what we have and what do you see is the gaps and some ideas on how we can achieve some better some of these things that Pam is talking about here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk a little bit about that. So, and I really appreciate the overview of what the concept is. And it sounds like the concept is kind of integrated messaging and for people to have a clear plan of how they could sign up to get information out in the event of an emergency. And also...
No, let me correct you, Michelle. I'm sorry. Pam went outside this scope. So number 2, what she calls resident resiliency is the point of this meeting.
No,
we're not talking about data collection. That's her suggestion, and I appreciate that, and we need to discuss it with Richard. And we're not talking about, alerts as sirens. That's outside the scope of this meeting.
Got it.
Here we only focus on neighbor to neighbor assistance.
Yeah, and I'm a linear thinker, so I just was repeating what I heard just to make sure I got it right. So I heard the part about data collection. I heard the part about the questionnaires, the rescue requests. When we get to neighbor the neighbor, which I'm assuming is how do we integrate this messaging with some of our existing programming?
Yes.
I think that's where Richard and I probably come into the conversation. And one piece of that is that currently, right now, for crime prevention, we have several hundred neighborhood watch block captains that participate in our crime prevention efforts. So these are volunteer residents who work with us on safety issues. We provide routine training and support for them. in their neighborhoods and in their communities on how to communicate with law enforcement, how to understand city services, if I need to call code enforcement, if I need to call public works, if I need to call any city department, how do we share that information? And we communicate with them on a regular basis. So we have monthly crime prevention meetings on various topics that might be of concern to them. So we provide training and information. We also do something, and I dropped it in a chat, called block captain training, where it can be very difficult for someone who is a resident to understand how to work through city services. That's very, can be a cumbersome task. So that's one of the things that we do, is we work with people on how do you work with the city network? How do you find out who's responsible and who does what? So here's something that I think might be helpful in terms of this conversation to help move us forward on neighbor to neighbor and neighbor to neighbor response. So there's a couple of ways that we can access neighborhoods, and we could share in information sharing efforts that Pam was talking about. And one of those things is that we could, if we had a kind of curriculum that we wanted to incorporate into our block captain training, share some of this as part of our regular training that we do for neighborhood watch groups. So neighborhood watch is different from neighborhood council, although neighborhood councils do participate in neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watches are small, independent little groups of blocks and people who are focused on crime and safety in their neighborhood. Sometimes these are people who are kind of automatically interested in additional support around CERT and around community response to emergency preparedness, and sometimes it's not. But I think it's a good place to have that conversation with them as we onboard new block captains, to train them in some kind of organized manner of how we can get this information out to them, so they can know here's the pathway of how we can connect around emergency preparedness. The other place that I think is a great option for us to be able to have some connection and some tie-in to this program would be for after we train our block captains, for us to be able to solicit those folks who want to get more information and who want to kind of integrate into this kind of a program that we're talking about, getting information about alerts and emergency preparedness, knowing where you can go, knowing about your to-go bag, knowing and understanding the process of evacuation. How can we make sure that those folks are connected with the people who are connected with CERT? Sometimes there's crossover, and Richard and I work together. He has staff that attends my meetings, and we try to attend his meetings as well. But I think we could do some more coordination and just making sure that all of our residents that go through our city programs around getting organized, because that's what this is all about, is about organizing people, have access to this information and this messaging so that we're all on the same page. So I think that's the second point, that we could be able to kind of tie that into some of our existing programming. The third point, I think, is that when we have events that come up that are specifically focused around emergency preparedness, community awareness, and evacuation, or even if there are special events that we want to put together to let the community know, hey, you can come down and you can learn more about this. You can come down and you can sign up about this. Maybe we have some specific options to be able to encourage people to do that. And so that might be special events. That might be, I would think for National Night Out, that would be a no-brainer. I would love to, and I mentioned this at our smaller group meeting, be able to incorporate some of this into some of our National Night Out activities, since we already have a lot of energy during that time around public safety and, evacuation and emergency preparedness. So I think that's a great entree to kind of get people connected. And we just would probably have to talk about the nuts and bolts and details of how we'd want to do that. We have coordinators that coordinate those National Night Out events, and some of them coordinate it every year. Sometimes it's a new block captain that's only been organizing their neighborhood for maybe, a year or so. And sometimes these are long-term people who have been around for 30 years, and so they have really kind of vast networks. So I think that would be another good opportunity to be able to help bridge that gap with neighborhoods, getting this information out to folks and making sure that people are aware of emergency preparedness, aware of what our evacuation strategy is, and have a toolbox of something practical that they can share with neighbors. I'm a big believer in each one, teach one. So we don't have to, do intensive training with everyone, but what we do have to do is we have to get people who are in leadership that have the tools, that know how to share information and are good organizers to go and do that. I started out as a community organizer. I, graduated from UC Berkeley. We did a lot of protests. We did a lot of that kind of work. And I believe in that community organizing kind of philosophy as you train people to train other people. So I think there might be some options for us to be able to do that and give some of our block captains and others who are interested in this some of that training as we kind of decide what that curriculum is going to look like, and get them out, outside and engaged. And just on your surveying point, one way that we might be able to help and make some connection is that we do every year an annual crime prevention survey. So there's things that I want to know from the standpoint of like neighborhood watch and crime prevention is like, is what we're doing effective? So do you know your beat officer? Do you know, how to access city services? Do you know who to call in an event of emergency? Do you know about ROC? Do you know about CORE? And it gives me an idea, even in an informal way, doing some of those surveying with our group, like where we need to do some work to educate people about these options. And so I'd love to be able to pull in and tie in a piece about, do you know about the evacuation strategy? Do you know you can sign up and get alerts? Do you know that about, some of these practical things about CERT and other training programs? So those are the things that I think could be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michelle. So I hear that we have neighborhood watch communities, and we have CERT group. And we also have FireWise group. So I'd like to ask Pam shared her ideas. You gave us an overview of block captain training. I'd like Erica to talk briefly about what they do as a FireWise community to be close and share information and help neighbor to neighbor. And then out of all this, I hope we can do some brainstorming about how to bring everything together. Erica, please.
Thanks, Sohela. Hello, Michelle and everybody. Um, what I'm going to share really comes from meeting with Rocky, actually. I think it was a couple years ago. We invited him to our FireWise core group to walk us through some tabletop evacuation
I'm
exercises.
sorry, but Rocky's name is Royce here, but he goes by Rocky. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. And he made it really clear. We were all ready to, have an evacuation drill and contact the sheriff's office in the county. And Rocky made it really clear there's actually so much pre-prep work to do. And that's been really true. And it's taken us almost this whole time to do that. And the main thing we worked on was getting an internal communication system set up for the 80 households. So it's really taken almost a year to do that. We experimented with Signal because it's an encrypted app, but when we went to sign people up, some people didn't have enough storage on their phone. The older people, were nervous about a new app that they didn't understand. So we kind of scrapped that idea. And we went door to door and we talked to every single neighbor. We brought a questionnaire that we'd created and we filled it out for them because we've had experience where when we leave a questionnaire, we don't get it back. So we asked them questions, again, confirming that they're okay with being part of a text group for their zone of maybe 10 to 15 homes. So we've divided the neighborhood into 6 zones. So we confirmed people's consent. We confirmed their phone number. We confirmed we gave guidelines on how these text groups would be used, limiting it only to information that's relevant to an emergency or safety. So it's not to be just random conversation. We asked for permission to list their name and phone number on the very first text that got sent out, just so people are aware of which other neighbors in their actual zone are on this text group. We let them know, this is getting into the structure, that me and another FireWise core group member would be on each text group. And that's so if one group sends out a message that's relevant to the other zones, we can see that and then copy it and send it out to the other zones. So it took us about a year to just get organized, figure out the zones, go door to door, and we just set up the text groups and sent out the first text a couple weeks ago. People were really appreciative. Some people replied back, some people didn't, but they were very appreciative. We haven't really used it yet because we're trying to limit it to an emergency and get people used to that. But with the May, I think it's May 30th, is that the evacuation drill date? I think that we'll use that as an opportunity to test our new text groups and just put out reminders or just information that's relevant to the evacuation drill and just see how it works. So we ended up just using regular text. It's not ideal. We realized some limitations because some people have an iPhone, some people have an Android. And when that's the case, there's a limited number of people on each text group. I think it can't exceed like 20. And then you can't really add new people. Like people can remove themselves, but I can't add a new person. Like I have to start a whole new group. So we haven't really encountered that. But we had one snafu where a neighbor, she renamed the group thinking she was just renaming it for herself, but she ended up renaming it for everybody and it messed it up because we named each one by zone. So that was another, I saw it like, oh my gosh, she's changed the name. And I had to text her and say, hey, you changed the name for everybody. And then I had to figure out how to change it back. And, so just in terms of operationalizing it, there's just a lot of moving parts. And I'm still not sure, I got a text from a neighbor's son who lives off site and he wanted to be added, but I'm not sure how that's going to work because I think I have to start a whole new chain. And I don't want people to get confused and start to, text on one chain when that's not the chain anymore. So it's not ideal using text, but I think because people understand it and it didn't require an app, that's what we're going with now. But I mean, at some point it might make sense to use Signal because it's encrypted. But again, there are those limitations, not everybody's phone has enough storage and people were flustered about it. So that's where we've gotten so far. But I think it does, even just sending out the first text to everybody, letting them know, thank you for, your response. Here's the purpose of this. I think people do feel like they're more connected or there's now this structural thing that connects them to their, closest neighbors. So there's both the like literal structural communication piece, but there's also like sort of the emotional, psychological part that's also important. And like people feeling like, oh, now I actually have a way of sending out a message to the 10 or 15 people who live closest to me or hear from them. So even though we haven't actually really put it into practice, I think it's helpful. And maybe the last thing I'll say is as we went around, last 4th of July, there was a fire on the dam at San Pablo Reservoir because apparently, I don't know how old they were, but somebody stole a boat from the boat ramp in the middle of the night. It was like 11 p.m., set off fireworks, and those caught on fire on the dry grass on the dam. And luckily it was noticed. I don't know how. And Watch Duty actually, they did not send out a notice, but they created a page for it. And I got in touch with the Watch Duty. So they gave me the link to the page that's not public. And I used that when we went door to door as sort of the hook to ask people, hey, did you know there was a fire at the end of the street in the park on July 4th? And hey, here's Watch Duty. look at here's a page that they made. You can see all the exchange about the fire and, the process and the progress as CAL FIRE came out. And so we use that opportunity to get watch duty on people's phones. Like we actually did it when we were door to door, because we've been telling them for a couple years, like get watch duty on the phone, and some people have added it and some people haven't. So this way, when we went door to door, we were in front of them. We got the watch duty on their phone, and we also got as many people up on the Genesis Protect app. So we kind of tried to do multiple things with that one visit for people. Yeah. So that was our big follow through from Rocky's meeting with us.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Rocky. Yeah, I remember that meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Sohaila, you were there.
Very good. Yeah,
Wonderful.
we put you in touch with Rocky, so I'm very
Yeah.
proud of the role West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council is doing here.
Yeah.
So we heard from one FireWise community. We heard from the neighbors who expect assistance from, mobility challenged neighbors to be helped receive assistance. And we need to come up with a plan in collaboration with Office of Emergency Services, Police Department, CERT, and us, West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council. Any suggestions how to go about it? And I hope we can wrap it up soon. And maybe I'm expecting too much, but develop or practice it with the upcoming drill. It's an excellent opportunity to get everyone's attention needed from city administration, budget policy, whatever, and people are eager to learn. Richard,
Yeah, hi.
any thoughts?
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Thank you, and hello, everyone. Want to take a step back and just capitalize on what Pam mentioned at the beginning, and it's, from my role, the traditional view of government really taking on this big responsibility of providing emergency services, which we do, but in time zone evacuation, that is obsolete. That idea doesn't really work. So really, I applaud the fact that, and most of you know that already. I think when I came to Richmond, I saw right away that people were very well aware of what hazards surround them, and they are pretty much in serious trouble and on their own. So that is a great start. So what we have been doing, and there's a lot more to do. There's no concrete plan. Going back to the question of Councilmember Claudia Jimenez asking is, what's in place right now? Our CERT program, it's a good vehicle. It's not the only thing that we could implement. There's a lot of other things, but in terms of addressing that first stage that the Pam displayed is, how you really teach people how to become more get more control of that aspect of, I need to really make sure that I know how to leave, that I know how to get myself together. The first responders, yes, they'll respond, but don't rely on them to be there, especially with only 7 fire stations in the city. Those are critical facts that need to be known. And also, it took me some time to understand that there's even prioritization that happens. By that, I mean, they're going to respond to priority situations, not areas or population, but situations. So again, that will hamper potentially being on scene for unknown time. That is one thing. Also with CERTs, by the way, we're on our second day of the CERT Academy. What I try to convey in this academy is, you guys, once you leave the academy, and there's something that I would love to strengthen more. Yes, they learn the basic skills. It's a FEMA curriculum that we sponsor here, but then what next? And that is something that I would love to incorporate into such a plan where they go and they would connect them. There'll be that piece, that important piece that of that puzzle that we're trying to implement. They're the ones who are going to go back to the neighborhoods and really have that assessment, that assessment of who's in need, what needs to be done, and who might need transportation need. I'm adding more to the typical CERT curriculum. And also with Michelle here, that block captain program, I would love for CERTs to also jump on that. So it's I need to find out too how to best sell it even now. And I am going to encourage them to look forward to joining future block captains. So that's again on the first part, just really making sure that the community understands that not really that they're on their own, but it's up to them to really become equipped. The second stage, yes, the city must have a plan. How we work in terms of city, especially here in California, as we follow and by saying we follow, it's a structure already defined. It's the standardized emergency management system where, when we are overwhelmed, we recur to the county for resources. County becomes overwhelmed, they recur to the state, and vice versa. So it's by tiers. We first address it locally, and then we go next step, and that's how response operations happen. Nonetheless, here locally, I know, especially working in other jurisdictions, we cannot just simply, we're forgetting about the private sector. Especially when we talk about transportation, imagine, yes, we can think about AC Transit, we can think about paratransit. What other players are out there from the private sector that easily can fill in that gap? Talking about Uber, critically thinking about agreements with Uber, agreements with Lyft, and they've done that already with the LA fires. They did offer evacuees a free ride to specific shelters. So that sort of stuff. Who else is out there? Is really mapping our realm of players and getting them on that. It's we put it all on city resources and say we will do this. That is shooting ourselves in the foot. Very, very eloquently, setting us up for failure. It's just making promises that will not be met. So, I support the fact that we're getting together and thinking about this as a whole. But again, for me, it's about understanding the wider picture. What do my residents? What does their profile look like? Who's in need? Who's really out there in challenging circumstances that, in case of evacuation, for instance, will need that special assistance. And then it's up to us then to coordinate and partner. So that is how we address it. And then Erica, you mentioned critical things, and thanks for sharing your thoughts as well in terms of that secular level of communication through text messaging, through I love the fact that you have been testing and you know exactly now some lessons to convey. Jackie, who's here with us, she dropped here on the text on the tech side. The recent graduates, CERT graduates, they did actually. Dan, you're here. Dan is one of the very active CERTs from last year, and took on that initiative to create a WhatsApp group amongst that particular CERT graduate cohort, and there's communication that goes on there. It's stuff like that. Is that initiative? Can we replicate Dan's in other neighborhoods? I mean, that's well, who knows? Depends on people's time, etc. But that is the thing. I think if we expose more of what our limitations are, we can then connect on areas that are more common. And lastly, an evacuation plan does not exist. It's part of my purview to come up with one. Yes, in an urgent situation, we will find ways, but we're developing something, which in essence will be an annex to an existing emergency operations plan where we're simply, delineate what the operations of that aspect would be. And at the same time, the county is going through a study, transportation study in this case, which will inform a wider county-wide evacuation plan. So we're hoping also to feed into that. But I'm not saying that I'm going to wait until that's done. If we have something here in Richmond, because that's how I think. Martinez is on that side. We're over here, far west. We need to have an edge on things, and that's where we're at.
Thank you so much. So I may have to leave in 5 minutes, but the meeting can continue. One thing I would like to get out of this meeting before you talk about, my children are leaving. I have to say bye to them. Sorry, that's what it is. And they've been waiting for me to say bye to them. I would like, if I may ask, I'd like to volunteer Rocky, if you have the time, Rocky, to talk to Michelle. She also sent the outline of the block captain program. We need to know what block captain program offers. And we need to know what Pam, please send a questionnaire, but your questionnaire says what you're offering. We appreciate if you also summarize the needs. What is it you expect, like Fire Safe Council or the city to provide? Connect you with the neighbors that can help you, and you're, working with this scheme. And what OES can help with. So ideally, we would like to have a program that combines what the fire department offers in terms of CERT or connecting neighbors, what the police department offers in terms of block captain or neighborhood watch, and what West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council offers in terms of emergency preparedness and connecting the neighbors, and come up with some neighbor-to-neighbor assistance program. So Rocky, can I volunteer you to please talk to Michelle? And if needed, I believe you're already in touch with Richard, because I don't have the bandwidth or knowledge that you do. I mean, I put you in touch with Erica and see what you did. They put 80 households connected together, which is awesome. So that's the least we can do. And we're going to have another meeting next week. So I hope in next week's meeting, again, 1 to 2 next Friday, we can hash it out, and hopefully maximum one more meeting. Then we can present it to HOAs. We can present it to FireWise communities, other communities to do this. And I think that'd be an excellent start. And I'm so sorry I have to go. I mute myself, but the meeting.
Are we speaking? Can we be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, may I just say 2 points here? First of all, if it was it's what Sohila just asked for. If we could have a flow chart, in other words, Michelle, both you and Richard were talking about all these organizations that already exist within the government. Maybe this one does, it's like an elephant. This one does the ear, this one does the tail, this one does the toenail. Okay, we've got an elephant here. Let's do a flow chart where here's the different things that already exist. Here's what they accomplish. Then we can stand back and say, maybe it already exists. We just have to connect them. And it needs to be a visual flow chart, not just like words or names of random government agencies. Just a little square. What's the name of the agency? What do they do? Name of the agency, what do they do? And then just have that. And then we could start to see if we can get the elephant to walk. Then the second thing I'd like to say is is thank God for Sohila. Her 94803 is why I even know anything's going on. Thank goodness she got us together. Thank goodness everybody's doing their part. Erica, my God. So, Rocky, thank you. So here's my most important thing, okay? Even if we didn't have any organization, even if we didn't have any plans for ambulances or lift or anything, if we had a communication system, if we had a siren that means something's happening, and then we had Here's an email that tells you something. Here's a phone call that tells you something that's at the level of PG&E reporting. Here's a 511 level number you can call to find out what's happening. That should be job one. Forget everything else. Because if you know something's happening and you know what it is, you can take care of your own emergency. Even seriously ill people have somebody that's keeping them alive. So we don't need any of this if we had a communication system. Then once we have the communication system, now we can get the elephant flushed out. Okay? But without the communication system, we're spinning around in the drain. We're spinning around in a drain. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you,
Speaking
Pam.
about communication systems, I'm wondering, Richard, if there is a upcoming 2026 beacon exercise that specifically tests the communication systems for evacuation and emergencies, and that is coming up. I'm wondering if Richmond is participating in that. It's on, I believe it's, I think it's April 30th.
Correct. It is April 30th. It is a regional communications drill, or exercise in this case. Richmond is participating. And no, it will not test evacuation alerting systems or communication systems, but rather redundant communication systems, specifically things like ham radio, which are traditional, very basic radio-based communications in case, all normal or modern communication capabilities are down. That's what the limitation of it. It's also other subset of communication platforms that will be tested, but not for evacuation.
So it doesn't pertain to this. Excuse me.
Does it? No, it's not for evacuation.
I was just wondering.
But again, it could be.
It should be.
Yeah.
It could be employed, not the exercise, but it'll test capabilities that for us locally, we can definitely depend on for communicating things out in case our normal systems fail.
Well, it sounds like our first task is to, first of all, come up and list, and Pam has suggested in a visual framework, our resources, both community and neighbor and citywide. And then we can look at that and see where we go from there. Is that correct? Is that how everybody sees it?
So it sounds like, what I'm hearing from the conversation is a need to kind of do an inventory of what already exists.
Right.
Services that already exist, ways that we can contact people, and they may or may not be government agencies. For example, neighborhood councils connect to the government, but they have independence. Neighborhood watches connect to the government, but they're independent organizations. There might be other organizations that need to be involved, who knows, that are neighbor to neighbor based. How do we integrate like the neighbor to neighbor program that the city's, started about how neighbors connect, so there's a lot of different pieces that could be here. So maybe the first step is to just try to gather that information as best as we can and create some kind of visual, for people to be able to see, here are some of the organizations that exist. I see Community Warning Center, that's dropped in the chat, which I think the community warning system is an important part of that. Here are some of the key parts of evacuation and emergency preparedness. And then I think we can figure out, like, well, how does the messaging get out to all of these different organizations? What is the role of each of them in the system? I don't know. I'll be honest with you, if that is something that can be done by next week. I think it's something that we can start, to have a conversation. My thing is that it's one thing to have a list of all the potential partners and the way they can connect. It's another thing to actually make the thing work. It's the difference between an idea and a function. So I think that form follows function. So, and so I think we can get the information, and then maybe we can figure out, okay, so how realistically can these function? Like, we talked about neighborhood watches being cross-trained with CERT. I think that's one function. We might want to talk about the unhoused community. We assume that they don't have any role in doing this. So I'm the manager of our core outreach contract. We go out and we contact 1,400 people a year who are unhoused. Some of them might be able to be trained through SOS Richmond to help with evacuation of their own communities because they're going to be left behind more than anybody else. They're not going to have anybody to connect with them. So there may be things that we're not even thinking about in terms of who's a neighbor. So I think just getting that information together and then trying to create some kind of visual, and then we can kind of think about like what the flow is and how the connections work might be good. I like visuals. I'm a visual person. I like operational things. So has nothing to do with emergency preparedness, but this is a recent just kind of flow chart we did about the camping ordinance that we use to train officers to know what you can and can't do, steps 1, 2, and 3, what do people provide? Because I think that helps people to kind of visualize like what's on the table. I don't know what these things are. So maybe Richard and I can get together and start that, and I would need the help from people at this group to share resources we may not be even aware of and give feedback, so that we have a comprehensive kind of database of folks who are doing this work, and then we can kind of put it into some kind of a flow. And then the idea about the flow is if the goal is to get everyone united under common messaging, we might want to think about as a group, fundamentally, how do you connect neighbors? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, again, neighborhood organization. So it doesn't matter whether it's CERT or whether it's Fireside Council or whether it's Neighborhood Watch or it's Neighborhood Council, really doesn't matter. The neighborhoods have to be organized and have a way to communicate with each other locally, not just regionally, but locally in case of an emergency, because we know that we're going to be left on our own for more than the first, 72 hours. So what does that look like for Richmond and what tools do we have? So maybe we start from there is like, how do neighbors connect now? Most people don't know 6 of their neighbors. They don't. So how do we get people involved and engaged? Not everybody's involved in a neighborhood council meeting. Not everybody's involved in neighborhood watch. So that might be a good place to start, is just kind of getting an inventory and maybe start with that idea of how do you connect people? And then you can come up with like, okay, let's connect you to emergency preparedness. Let's connect you to evacuation resources. Let's connect you to neighborhood watch. But you start with getting neighborhoods organized and look at the existing structures and say, hey, we're not trying to change what you do, because people hate it when you come in and say, I'm going to change what you do because I think I can do it better. So maybe we can say, is this important to you? Is it important for you to know in an emergency at least 6 of your neighbors and connect? Are you a part of any of these groups? And would you be willing to get cross training on these particular items? That might be a better way to have the conversation.
Sounds good.
I love that we're getting the traction to get the elephant identified and understand that there won't be some parts that'll fit together. There might be an elephant there might be an ear of an orangutan that we're collecting. That's fine. It'll still help us understand what already exists that can just be plugged together like Tinker Toys. And Michelle, the communication, the community communication, you have such a sensitivity to how to get people engaged rather than turned off. Like that whole, it's not an authority situation. It's more of a connection and an offering. And something that I think we're all hungry for. We're hungry for some sense of belonging to something. And people typically want to belong to smaller groups. It's like a tribe thing. Sometimes it's a group of 50, sometimes it's a group of 10. It's a small group that you belong to. When Erica talked about 80 and then she talked about 10, that's kind of where real power happens. And I think Richard showed us a map where we had all these different areas that were identified FireWise. I don't know if those maps relate to how the neighborhoods break down. I don't know if that's the way that it even would make sense to understand this. But by having what Erica did, basically, which is kind of an understanding of a group of about 80, and then breaking that into, she broke it into 6 groups of 10 to 12. And then those people right there are the circle of support. Those are the people. And the resiliency comes from being in a group, not being like a citizen, but being actually a member. So I think what we're doing has a time and a place. Maybe 2 years ago it wouldn't have been possible. I mean, COVID, yeah, aside, I don't think we needed it like we need it now. And I don't want to go into the whole political situation, but there's many reasons that we really need to connect, and we're not. And I think this is a really, I think people are hungry for it now, where maybe a few years ago they weren't.
Hey everyone, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
This is Rocky. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I loved hearing this conversation, by the way. This is music to my ears. And essentially, I think we're all on the right track. I love the diagram concept, Pam, and I love what you had to say about the database and all those other things. And Michelle, looking forward to chatting with you better, getting to know you better. I'm on the road, as you can tell. I'm in my car. So it'll take me a couple of days to get back to Richmond. But otherwise, I look forward to contacting everybody. And Erica, it's always a pleasure to hear from you. And you know, I think it's going to be a layered approach. You know how you get dressed for a cold day? You don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. Well, you put on layers, and this is what this is. Communication is going to be a layer. There's no one technology that's going to be uniform for everybody. So layer it, you know, do it. I love the activism that Michelle discussed. Yay, UC Berkeley and, you know, freedom of speech movement still alive there. So anyway, I think all of these things are solutions, and that's why I like Pam's idea of putting it on a map. And we're not going to get the map done in 1 week, like Michelle said. It's going to take a while, but we can all contribute, and this is the community building process that we are involved with each other. So I love this process, and thank you very much for allowing me to be part of it.
So until next week.
Yeah, I think so. I have to go. So thank you all. I look forward to chatting with everyone. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle, and everybody.
Everybody, and thanks, Dan, for sending
Thanks,
the
everyone.
GroupMe text group information. I'm going to look into that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it and look forward to chatting more. And then I'll check in with Richard offline. So we'll hopefully have some more to kind of present something, you know, so we can put some meat on the bones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you all.
Oh, the meeting finished? Okay.
We just
Bye,
finished.
thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
I hope you were happy with the results. I'll watch the recording. Thank you very much, Claudia. Thanks, Marianne. Bye, Dan. See you all.
How do I